Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you to another in the series, In the Light of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you. And in this segment, we'll be looking at some questions which have come in from our viewers regarding some aspects of wudu, that is the purification done before prayers, as well as some questions regarding the use of charms and amulets. The first question, which comes from Sister Aisha in Sharjah, she says, Dear Sheikh Bilal, Assalamu alaikum. Some books mention different things which break wudu: vomit, blood, the touching of men and women, etc., while others do not. What is correct? And another question, why does sleep break wudu? Please answer these questions for me. Yours sincerely, Aisha, Sister Aisha. Well, the differences that we find in books regarding things which break wudu have to be looked at in the light of whether the information is backed by evidence, one, and whether, two, the evidence is in fact authentic. With regards to the basic things which break our state of purity, which is produced by making wudu, or ablution, that is the washing of the hands, face, feet, etc., it is known that the passing of wind, the passing of urine, defecation, sleep, these are things which are agreed upon by all of the scholars, and the evidence for them very, very clear and authentic. In terms of touching one's private parts, there is also evidence for that, where Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had stated that whoever touches their private parts must make wudu. So the touching of one's private parts will require us to make wudu. However, there is another narration which implies or clarifies that this touching needs to be skin on skin. This is what causes the breaking of wudu. But if one, from the outside of one's clothing, accidentally scratches oneself or, like this does not break the state of ablution. Now, with regards to vomit and blood, there are some narrations which state that vomit and blood break wudu. However, these narrations are not authentic. There are, in fact, no authentic traditions to support the concept that vomit and bleeding from a cut on the hand or the head or whatever, not bleeding as in the case of a woman, menses, but some form of a cut, maybe in making the gargling or brushing one's teeth, some blood comes, etc., that some people hold that this breaks wudu. However, there is no evidence for this. In terms of touching a man touching a woman, or a woman touching a man, by accident or deliberately, this is held by a particular school of Islamic law, the Shafi'i school in particular, and this is based on the literal interpretation of the verse in which Allah says in the Quran, وَإِذَا لَمَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, and if you touch women. However, this touching, which is mentioned in the Quran literally, as linguistically translated, was understood by the companions of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, as meaning sexual intercourse. That this was only a metaphorical way of referring to it. Even the very verb which is used, instead of saying lamasa or lamastum, which literally means touching, lamasa means mutual touching. This one touches that one, the other one touches the other. And furthermore, when we look into the sunnah, the way of Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, we find his wife Aisha reporting to us that the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, used to kiss his wives and then go and lead prayer. So if the touching of a woman is to break one's state of ablution, and we know that the wudu or state of ablution is necessary for the validity of prayer, then this practice of Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, obviously indicates that this touching did not mean touching in the sense of kissing or just touching by the hand. What in fact it means and refers to is sexual intercourse. The other question with regards to sleep, and there are different opinions as to what constitutes sleep which breaks the state of wudu. There are some which indicate or hold that if a person goes to sleep in the sitting position, because in the sitting position, one is much more unlikely to break one's state of wudu, whereas in a lying position that one breaks wudu, or if one is in partial sleep, where one is conscious of what is going on around oneself, then that dozing does not break wudu. If we look to see why does sleep break wudu, if we look at all of the other things, passing of wind, urine, defecation, all of these others are clearly, things, impurities coming from our bodies. That the impurities leaving our bodies causes us to be now in a state where we need to wash ourselves once again for cleanliness before prayer. Whereas in the case of sleep, we can see there's nothing coming from our bodies. So it is quite a logical question to wonder, why does sleep break wudu? The reason is because sleep, when a person goes to sleep, they lose consciousness. So they're not aware of what is going on around them. As such, it is possible in a state of sleep to pass wind without realizing it. As the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had pointed out, that consciousness, wakefulness, represents the means by which one assures that wind doesn't pass from one, without one's knowledge. However, sleep, that assurity is gone. So this is the point. Why sleep breaks wudu, or it's recognized as breaking wudu, is because when one is in a state of sleep, one is not aware of what is going on, and one could pass wind without knowing it. So as long as that possibility exists and one doesn't know, then the requirement is there to make ablution, wash oneself before prayer, to be assured that one is in a clean state, a properly purified state, to stand before God in formal prayer. This doesn't mean that one may not turn to God, raising one's hands in prayer at any time. If one wishes to turn to God and pray, this is perfectly permissible, and it doesn't require any particular state. At any time, one may do so. However, the formal prayer, which is set 5 times a day with a particular format, etc., this one requires us to be in this state of ablution. Therefore, in concluding, we just say that the main point with regards to those things which are mentioned, which break wudu, which other books do not, we have to look to see what is the evidence. If there is authentic evidence, then we have to follow it. But in fact, those points which are mentioned, vomit, bleeding, these do not have authentic evidence behind them, so they do not break the state of wudu. Touching women, what is meant by this is sexual intercourse and not just accidentally touching somebody. And we said, in concluding, that sleep breaks wudu not because itself it is a form of impurity or something like this, but because in a state of sleep, we're unaware of what may pass from our bodies. The second question is from Sister Fahmida Hamid, who is in Sharjah, writing, Dear Dr. Bilal, in our country, people wear Quranic charms and ta'weez to protect them from evil. Is this allowed in Islam? Please explain for me this question. The concept of protection from evil in Islam is one which is very clearly explained in both the Quran and the Sunnah as being a function of God. that Allah alone is the one who can permit harm to come to us or to permit harm to come to us or to ensure that good comes to us. He is the one who can prevent that harm. He is the one that can cause that good. Right? Therefore, there is nothing in this life, nothing which can prevent evil from coming to us or ensure good can come to us. And this is the basic purpose of a charm or an amulet. A person wears a charm or amulet around the neck, around the arm, the waist, or the foot, or whatever. They wear these, or they carry it on a chain, they hang it in their cars or whatever. They wear it believing that it will protect them from evil or it will bring good for them. This practice is fundamentally a pagan practice. This is the practice of the pagans, those who worship other than God. And we have a number of examples in the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ where people came to him wearing such things. And he assured them that these were not permitted. I'd just like to quote some direct examples for you here. For example, we have in an authentic tradition collected by Ahmad and Ibn Majah, Imran ibn Hussein, companion of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, reported that when the Prophet saw a brass bangle on a man's upper arm, he said to him, "Woe be on you, what is this?" The man replied that it was to protect him from a sickness called al-wahina, which literally means weakness and is probably referring to arthritis. The Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, then said, "Cast it off, for verily it would only increase your weakness, and if you died with it on, you would never succeed." This is the clear indication that the wearing of such things, it's one thing if we have something which is medically sound, which we take to protect ourselves from or to cure certain illnesses. But just to wear something like a brass bangle or a copper bracelet or these type of things, which have no scientific basis to them at all, this is a dependence on some form of charm or amulet. We have another example where a number of the people had come to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with the intention of giving an oath of allegiance. This is reported by Uqba ibn Amir and collected by Tirmidhi and Ahmed, authentic tradition, in which he said, a group of 10 men came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to give their oath of allegiance. He only accepted the oath for 9. They asked, "O Messenger of Allah, why did you take the covenant from 9 of us and refuse this man?" The Prophet answered, "Verily he has a talisman on him, an amulet." The man then put his hand in his cloak, pulled out the talisman and broke it. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ finished taking the oath from him, he turned and said, "Whoever wears a talisman, an amulet, has committed shirk." Shirk is worshipping others besides Allah, giving the powers of Allah to His creation. So, it is not permissible for a Muslim to be involved in these practices. Now, if one uses the Quran, writes instead Quranic verses, hangs it on the wall in the house or in the car, etc. Or we have, as is a common practice at one point in time, which continues till today, people started to write Quran with such small letters, they were able to produce a Quran which would only be about this, by this, only maybe an inch thick, a little, very, very small Quran. And of course, the purpose behind such Qurans was not to read them. They would be put in some kind of case and covering and worn around the neck. People believing, or carried with them, they believing that the Quran, would protect them from evil. Now we know the Quran is fundamentally a book of guidance from God to man. That this was not the purpose for which the Quran was sent. To use the Quran